Good morning, everyone. Bear with us as we get everybody into the Zoom room. Great. Thanks, Ben. Looks like we have everyone here. Good morning. Welcome. Thank you for joining us for the 2021 State of the State with Governor Sununu. So thank you all very much for joining us. We're looking forward to a good morning. I'm Valerie Rochon. I'm the president at the Chamber Collaborative of the Greater Portsmouth, and we have Ben Van Camp, who's also driving the Zoom bus for us today. He'll be our moderator during the Q&A later. A little bit of housekeeping. You will all be on mute, and if you have any questions, would you put them in the chat, please? And Ben will be looking at the chat and moderating that for you. I want to thank the Bank of America Merrill Lynch team, Ken Sheldon and his team for sponsoring this. Usually in years past, we've had this as a morning breakfast, which we were just saying we miss terribly, seeing people and being with people. But Ken and the Bank of America team have been supporters for many, many years, and we're very thankful for that. I'm going to introduce Ken, who will then introduce the governor. So Ken Sheldon currently serves as the Bank of America's New Hampshire state president. As president, Ken acts as the company's enterprise leader in New Hampshire. And we, as I've said, we are so thankful to Ken and his team at Bank of America Merrill Lynch for sponsoring this State of the State and other events that he has sponsored with us in years past. He's got a great team. Thanks, Ken.
Well, thank you, Valerie, and good morning, everyone. In times of crisis, leadership skills are tested. The past 14 months of COVID, killing almost 560,000 people nationwide, have certainly qualified as a crisis. It's the kind of test that demands leadership, and Governor Sununu has stepped up to the challenge. And he thought the Appalachian Trail was an endurance test. He's digested the science like an engineer and been informed by the professionals around him. He's kept the public and press up to date through regular press conferences, Zoom calls like this, and social media. He's fought for the state's fair share of relief dollars and vaccines and been fair in the distribution of both. He's helped New Hampshire lead the nation in having the highest vaccination rate amongst its residents. He's waited his turn for his own vaccination. He's continued to support small businesses in all parts of the state, and he's continued to promote the maintenance of the New Hampshire advantage despite the economic effects of COVID. Not an easy task. Though the test continues, our governor has been keeping our citizens safe and healthy and ultimately getting our lives and economy back to normal in New Hampshire. As Governor Sununu has often said recently, this could be an amazing summer. So with deep appreciation for his and his family's tireless commitment and personal sacrifice, it is my distinct honor to welcome Governor Chris Sununu for this year's State of the State address to the Greater Portsmouth Chamber. Governor?
Well, thank you very much. Always an honor to be introduced by Ken. Someday, Ken is, I think this is his 117th time introducing me, and it gets better every time. So I appreciate you guys having me on and doing it in Zoom. I know that's weird, and we're all getting almost too used to Zoom, I think. It's weird. We're getting very used to it and very sick of it at the same time. So I think we're all looking forward to be back in person. And I guess to cut to the chase, it's going to happen really, really soon. We're very fortunate. We're in a great place here in New Hampshire, managing the COVID crisis, right? Having one of the lowest death rates in the country, one of the strongest economies in the country, and now one of the fastest vaccine distributions in the country. We're just knocking it out of the park. I don't know what to say. We got a great team, and the thanks always goes to the citizens, because they're the ones that are making the sacrifices, not just with their families or their businesses, with masks and social distancing and all of that, using our systems, and then really building a team that pays attention very carefully to that customer service. I go back to something I talked about in my very first inaugural address when I first got elected governor. My whole focus has always been to get government to be more customer service centric. We're there for the individuals. We shouldn't be asking individuals to fit into our system. We need to wrap our system and be flexible to do that around the needs of the individual, whether you're talking about school or mental health or a pandemic. There's a variety of different ways. And I think by building that for the past few years, by building a team that understands that philosophy, that mindset, that idea of meeting metrics and goals, not just, worrying about policy and paper, which typically happens in government. When the crisis did hit, we were ready. We were ready for the unknown, so to say. We had to write the playbook. Nobody knew really what each day was going to bring. And obviously March of last year, every day was like living a year of your life away. It was really unbelievable what we had to do and what the team had to do. But we had worked very hard to get there, to be ready for the unknown. And that way, when the crisis hit, I just couldn't have been prouder. I mean, everyone snapped together, put all the ideas on the table, moved very quickly into the unknown with a lot of bravery, frankly. There was 1,000 ways to second guess us on decisions that had never been made by any governor in history. But at the end of the day, by showing the transparency, the data, by being super connected to the people, even like, if you remember, I know my press conferences now can be like, oh God, it's going another hour on a Thursday afternoon. But remember, back then we were doing almost every day. And the reason we did that was to stay connected. And one thing I talk about a lot was this idea that, we're all in this together. People would hear me say that or hear other governors say it, but it's easy to say. The way you do it is really by being super transparent. What you know, I know. Every press conference, the press from day one has been able to ask every question they wanted until they literally had nothing else to ask. Because we wanted that complete fluid motion in the time of crisis, and that builds public trust. That's what that was really about. You build public trust with transparency and showing how our charts and how we look at data and all those metrics and being consistent, not saying, well, I guess we're going to look at something else today, and we're going to look at something else today because it fits our agenda or our schedule or where we want the public to go. I don't want the public to go anywhere other than where we are, right? And so, because that's where we all need to be together in this. So I won't relive all the last 14 months. That would literally take years. It's weird. It would take years to discuss the last year. But, and we all lived it, right? Everyone had to make sacrifices. Everybody has a really compelling story to tell about what they had to go through with their family or their business, whatever it was, through 2020 and now as we enter 21. But we really are on the tail end of this, not by months, but by weeks and days, which is very exciting. Our systems are working. I got my vaccine this past weekend on Saturday. I drove up with Commissioner Shibaned and Dr. Daly, and we all, we're all in the 40 range. So we all got our shots together. And that system, to see it play out to the end game, right? You do all the back end work to the point where how quick is it to drive up, get a vaccine, be safe, and be able to drive home, knowing that that's really one of the last final things as individuals we have to take on. And if we choose to take on, we're not mandating, of course. And it works. It's working really, really well. So over the past year, I will say, and then I really want to open up for questions because I love to know what's on people's mind. If you go back to where we were and all the tough decisions that had to be made in March with essential and non-essential businesses and some of the restrictions we put into place, we put in less restrictions here than most places, but we did enough to create that balance of allowing a strong economy with maintaining public safety, which was obviously very, very important. And we, I think, did that very well. We came in, we actually had a pretty good summer last summer when a lot of people were assuming the worst. But at the same time, we got all that CARES Act money. And other states were sitting there diddling around trying to figure out how to spend CARES Act money within their government entities. We weren't. We quickly decided that money is going to go out, right? We're going to boost up and prop up businesses that are in trouble or businesses that can't hold on to their employees. Because once you get rid of a business, it's so much more difficult, almost impossible to bring it back to partake in the economic recovery of 2021, which we knew was going to happen. We had a lot of faith there. So I took more dollars than any other state of our CARES Act money and put it into businesses. We did more than California, Texas, any state in the country through the Main Street Relief Funds. And we did a couple rounds of that. We did a nonprofit relief fund because they hire so many of our citizens and provide so many critical services. We're the only state that did a self-employment relief fund because it's so complicated to do an audit because of the tax implications there. But we worked hard and we figured it out and we got it done. And So when you look at the hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars that we were able to pump into our economy that other states just weren't able to do, Massachusetts couldn't do any of that. And I'm not taking a shot at Massachusetts. They just had very different dynamics. They had to spend their money in very different ways. And they have different variables that they're looking at to make those decisions. They were at really, I mean, remember, we were the suburb of ground zero for COVID. People forget Boston had the highest rate of COVID on the planet at one point, and we're 30 miles outside of that downtown. So to keep ourselves separate from that, if you will, and to have such drastically better numbers is not hard. I mean, it's not easy. It's a challenge, and it's a challenge that the entire team took on very, very seriously. But by investing in the economy and providing a lot of flexibilities, it's provided just a much better situation today. So through a crisis, you have to deal with the moments of the crisis, but you cannot take your eye off the long game. You have to also play for the long term here. And that's why I think the way we invested our CARES Act dollars, it was incredibly unique. No other state did it like us, but it was also very, very successful. Not that everything was perfect, don't get me wrong, but it was incredibly successful in allowing us to be where we are today. And then again, being, I think, upfront with the systems, right? We tried that, if you remember, we tried that federal VAMS scheduling system when it came to vaccines. We did that for about a month. It sucked, excuse me. It was terrible. It was the worst. And we quickly said, well, this stinks. And we came up publicly and we said, this stinks. And we designed our own system. You know, you don't kind of just settle for what if you try down a path and it doesn't work, it's okay to say, well, we tried it, didn't work. We're going to design and build our own system. We built Vinny. Everyone loves Vinny. Vinny's working really well. And that has been a huge part of our success, not just having Vinny, but I think, saying when we try something and it doesn't work, it's okay to acknowledge it and take a different tact. I think you find a lot of folks in government or politics are afraid to admit that something wasn't working. It's okay. It's all right. If you try 5 things and 3 of them work, own the 3 things that work, but own the 2 that don't work either. But always create your systems to be nimble enough to be able to pivot if something doesn't work. And that's, I think, what we were very good at doing prior to the pandemic with the right staff and the right systems. Then we get obviously you have the elections and the chaos of 2020. And I don't think I'm using any hyperbole. 2020 was a very chaotic year, full of angst and anger. And, we had the riots. We're dealing with riots in the middle of a pandemic. We're trying to get Hampton Beach open. At the same time, we're dealing with bringing in PPE from China. It was a crazy, crazy time. But it all worked out fairly well. We get through the elections, the new administration comes in. They're very different. Working with the Biden administration is very different than the Trump administration, both good and bad. It can be a little frustrating for a variety of reasons, but we're working through it fairly well. Yesterday was a good example. I was on the phone with Fauci and the team yesterday, not getting the answers that a lot of us governors wanted. What has been very interesting through this whole process is governors as a whole, Republican and Democrat, have all come together, all talking, sharing ideas, sometimes daily, especially early on, but even now, once or twice a week, I'm on with all the governors in the country. Just how are you doing vaccines? How's your pharmacy program going? How were you working with the administration? How are you going to spend the Biden bucks? All of this kind of stuff. So we're always banging around ideas, and especially with the New England governors, again, because we're really in it together. We just share so much commonality within our borders. Even though we might differ politically, I hats off to virtually, not all, but virtually all the governors for really having, I think, from very early on, the courage to say, ignore the politics of this as best we can. Let's just get this thing done. And that's been, I think, one of the keys to a lot of state success, frankly. Whenever you inject politics as a variable into the decision-making process, it usually doesn't make things better, right? It just doesn't. So in a crisis, it's the worst time to be political. And some folks were trying to play that game, but it just doesn't bear out very well. So I think by staying there where we needed to be, we entered the vaccine phase. And now we just have still a lot of issues, not taking our eye off of education, mental health, the SUD crisis, all these things. We didn't just say, well, we'll get to them next year. Constantly managing those pieces as well, trying to innovate to make sure folks were still getting as many of the services they could, knowing we had a very limited workforce. Even where we had we made all these exceptions for telemedicine, online. That worked wonderfully, but it's still not as good sometimes as coming in and talking one-on-one with a mental health provider or an SUD counselor or whatever it might be. So we really had to patchwork that together, did as I think a very good job with it. The doorway system working very well, things like that, those systems we had built into place. Again, we created with some flexibility so they could withstand whatever pressures may come from it. And overall, it withstood very well. So now we get to the phase we are in now, which is about budgets and things like that with the legislative session, with the legislature, not back in the State House, they're meeting in Bedford, but they are back and they are meeting and looking at a variety of things and just making sure that we have an opportunity to cut taxes across the board. We're going to do it. We have the opportunity to make sure we have a balanced budget. We have a lot of money coming into the state. We've just managed things so well, frankly, that we have surpluses where we thought we were going to have massive deficits. We have surpluses because everybody wants to be here. Businesses are coming in left and right. I think on the unemployment number came out yesterday, and we're back down to 3.0 on an unemployment rate, with virtually everybody, our employment numbers, our labor force, pretty much back to where it was pre-pandemic, very close to where it was pre-pandemic, which is amazing considering there's still a lot of kids, still about 20 school districts that haven't gone back to full-time learning yet. I think there'll be a lot of reskilling of the workforce over the summer. I think a lot of people are going to find new careers. And I think the workforce really comes back at peak, maybe of September, October of next year. I think folks are going to take the summer, make sure the kids are back in school 5 days a week, which is happening literally just about a week away from now, if it hasn't happened already. And those are the type of things that families are looking at to decide, how fast and where to get back to work. And I think when that dust settles, people might take the summer, do some summer projects, spend their stimulus checks or whatever it is, take the vacation that they lost in 2020. They'll take a little extra time at home or maybe even traveling, and then really come back in full force. So I think there's nothing but even as strong as our economy is today, I think it does nothing but go up from here, frankly, because we're the place everybody wants to be. If you're in the real estate market, you're welcome, because it is booming and you're all making a heck of a lot of money. And if you're willing to sell a house, God bless you, you're probably getting 40% over what it's actually worth. Although I'm not sure where you got to go live somewhere. That's the conversation that we're all having. I could sell my house for so much money, but where am I going to go live? No one wants to leave New Hampshire, obviously. So, so we have strong markets in a variety of different areas. Doesn't mean we don't have a lot of issues we have to deal with as well, but there's definitely more opportunity out there than I think if you had told me we were going to be in this place a year ago, I would have said you're crazy. But we really do have a ton of opportunity here. And not that the governor gets everything he wants and the legislature gets everything they want. There's always a compromise to be had. And I feel fairly confident we'll get there with a lot of these issues. But look, like I said, we could go on all day. Would love to get some questions and just hear what you guys are feeling, what you're seeing on the ground.
Sure. Good morning, Governor. This is Ben Van Camp, the Vice President at the Chamber. Several questions came in. One from Gabe, who's the owner of a craft hot sauce company called Spicy Shark. Haven't checked it out. Please do. Fabulous. He wants to know if there's a metric, vaccination rate or date in the future that has been agreed upon to end the mask mandate.
The mask mandate will be ending very, 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 very soon. Yeah. We're there. We're really there. We're looking at, I can't tell you exactly what date it's going to be, but it's I think the term we use in New Hampshire is wicked soon. Wicked soon. So we're there.
All right. Very good. Another question came in from Elizabeth, who owns a boutique in downtown Portsmouth, Putting on the Glitz. She recently purchased that business after being a employee there for a number of years, and she ran into an issue where she purchased it outside the date that allowed her to get some of those funds that are available. And I think there's a bill, SB 107, that's working to change that date, the ownership date. And she wanted to know if there was any status update on that, and if you think that bill will be passed.
Well, so a couple things. If you're talking about the CARES Act money, we spent all the CARES Act money prior to December, because up until, Congress, this is how inept Congress is. They said you have to spend every dollar by December 31st, 2020. So we did. And then on December 28th, with like 2 days to go, they said, oh, no, you can spend it next year too. Well, every state had spent every dollar. It was unbelievable. That's how out of touch Congress is right now. But so the good news is this: we've had because some businesses took funds, did much better than they thought, and per the federal rules, if you exceeded revenue from the previous year, you have to kind of return the money. The money was there to kind of get for revenue replacement. But if you ultimately didn't need your revenue to be replaced, you have to send that money back to New Hampshire. So we'll take that money, and we're getting a lot of it back as part of the tax receipts literally tomorrow, today and tomorrow, right? As folks file their taxes. And then we'll send it out again. So it's not going to be hundreds of millions, but it could be tens of millions. And we'll kind of look at the gaps in the system where the real needs are. I don't know if we're going to do another a Main Street Relief Fund. We did it for existing businesses. You had to be in business for at least a year because we had to be able to audit your taxes. You had to have, a good standing with your taxes and all this. It's just the only way to audit it, so the federal government didn't come and take our money back, and because we have to justify exactly how we spent it per their rules. So all that being said, I don't know how we're going exactly. We have a lot of ideas on the table exactly how the money is going to be redistributed through the next part of the year. It won't be as big as it was before. I don't know if I know there's some needs in food banks and food pantries. We have to look at what rules are coming with the Biden bucks. They haven't even given us the rules and the guidelines of how to spend the 1.9 trillion that they just passed. So once we figure out how we can spend that money, that'll show us where the gaps are over here, like where we can't spend money. We have more flexibility, and we'll make those adjustments. So that's a very long way of saying dollars are going to be made available. I can tell you it's probably in the next few months, but I can't tell you exactly what it's going to look like because we still need to see, where the opportunities are most needed.
Sure. Another question came in that we've been seeing truly a mental health crisis in our children and teens. I think that's largely due to a lack of safety net of the school system. But I'm curious to know if the state is prepared to meet that demand. We've heard of long wait times for folks to see people being stuck in an emergency department for days. And is the state prepared to meet that demand of that growing crisis with their teens and young adults?
Look, absolutely. Right before the pandemic hit, the waiting list for a mental health bed in this state was zero. We literally had no waiting list. Commissioner Shibinette and the team did a phenomenal job putting a lot of the things that we had passed and put into place and the new flexibilities we tried to put into the system were working really well. Obviously, the pandemic hits, exacerbates mental health issues, not just for kids, but for adults for a variety of reasons. And so we're kind of at the peak of that now. As kids get back to school, we know that should help things get better in a variety of ways. We have a workforce issue. That's the primary driver and issue behind certain beds not being open. We have 7 or 8 beds today empty and available in some of our private facilities that are taking Medicaid patients, but they literally don't have the staff. They're waiting for staff to come back from either being away from for COVID reasons or maternity leave or whatever it is. It's simply a workforce issue. So in the next couple of weeks, a lot of that staff comes back into place. A lot of the staff has been vaccinated. They feel more comfortable. So the staffing issues alone will ultimately get better, but it goes way beyond that. We're trying to build much better connection with our community mental health providers. Some work in this state very well. Some in this state are problematic. They can't maintain staff. They're always kind of pushing back on I find a lot of folks spending a lot of time telling me why they can't do things instead of challenging themselves on why they can. And I just want to see the results. So whether it's increasing rates in certain areas, we can do that, and we will. Whether it's finding, the student debt payback program that I propose, which costs taxpayers nothing, but would incentivize mental health workers to stay and work in the state and will help pay down their student debt. I don't believe in free college, by the way. Free college is a really bad idea just to make everything free. The whole system would fundamentally collapse under that. But incentivizing students to stay and work here by helping pay down their debt, that's a whole different story. And we can do programs like that. We've expanded the number of nurses and are currently doing that, not just in our community college, but in our university system. Getting more, we've put a lot of money out for what we call DRF beds. We've put contracts out that nobody takes. We have millions of dollars that we put out there. Nobody's picking it up. So we're going to increase the rates and make some adjustments there. We have more emergency teams out there. The best mental health is in the community-based mental health. So we're really trying to decentralize, after decades of centralized programs, decentralize our system so you can stay in the community. But really, the backbone of that is you can have the best ideas and the best programs in the world. But if you don't have the people to deliver them, it's not going to work. So really focusing on the workforce of kind of tomorrow, that's our one of the fundamental barriers we're trying to break down to get where we want to be with the mental health crisis.
And I'm glad you mentioned workforce, because that is a key issue that we're seeing here in the Portsmouth and the Seacoast community as our businesses are looking to ramp up for what we hope is a big summer business. Folks are really having a hard time finding the right staff. One of the traditional methods for finding that staff has been J1 visa. Folks, do you see any ability to get that program rolling for this summer?
Well, I hope. I mean, look, I've been advocating for more J1 visas since the day I became governor. The Trump administration was not very good about that. They really cut back on them. It was very problematic. I'm hoping that the Biden administration takes a different tact. I haven't seen it yet, but we're hoping it. So yeah, I recommend folks all across, the kind of that summer tourism industry and for that summer boom, apply now, get your applications in, and we'll see what comes. But it's a federal program, and we're advocating as strong as we can for as many J1 visas because we need them. Our economy really thrives on them.
Sure. And another component of that workforce issue is our housing costs. You mentioned earlier the cost of housing being 40% higher than perhaps it should be. What plans and how can we work with the state and local government level to encourage more housing development, more housing options, and housing variety?
Well, you said it right there. The biggest barrier to housing is local. It just is. It's a supply and demand issue. It's bizarre that housing has become almost a NIMBY issue. People treat housing like it's a prison, which it's just, if I may, ass backwards thinking. It's very frustrating at the state level because you cannot say you support business and not support more workforce housing in your community, because no business can survive without the workers, and workers don't want to commute an hour in to do that. So whether it's in Portsmouth or Bedford or Salem or Derry or Newfields, or I don't care what town you're in, everybody has a responsibility to look at 21st century planning. And you just have some planning groups in this state, planning commissions, if you will, that think like it's 1995. They this old school mentality of thinking. You have folks in here that go, well, we don't want to encourage too many young families to move in. That might cost us some money. I don't know what planet you are living on, right? We are losing kids out of our school system. We don't have enough kids in our school system, frankly. You should want those families to come in, to support the worker base, to encourage businesses to stay, to be a part of that long-term thriving economy. That is actually how you lower property taxes. But they're so caught up in thinking like it's 20 years ago. And it's, well, we won't do it in this town, but I'm sure, this town doesn't want to do it, but I'm sure the town over, I was going to start naming towns, but I probably shouldn't do that as governor. I got in trouble for that once, but I'm sure they will, but they won't. And so you're getting a lot of these battles. The biggest barriers, if you talk to developers, the biggest barriers are with the system at the local level and so it doesn't mean the state isn't part of that. Dean Christian, who runs New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority, does a phenomenal job. We were given $200 million in rental assistance through the $1.9 trillion. That's, or I guess the bill they passed in December. $200 million to help people with rental assistance. We did a program like that last year. In the height of the pandemic, only about 17 million got used. It's not about rental assistance. It's about bricks and mortars and actual product. So that's the issue we're having. When you have 3% unemployment and the far and away the lowest poverty rate in the country, rental assistance is wonderful. It's great, but you can put all the money in the world to it. But if it's not being spent there, we're asking the federal government for flexibility to spend those dollars in other ways to create the incentives that kind of you're talking about, which we'd love to do. Right now, we're not allowed to do that with any of this federal help that we're getting. They're just stuck on rental assistance. But in a state like New Hampshire, a lot of times it's about bricks and mortar and encouraging those developers and working with those local planning commissions to get it done. But that is the single biggest barrier to workforce that we have.
Great, thank you. A question from Ken Sheldon that he says that recent federal stimulus bill restricts federal monies from being used at the state level to reduce taxes. How do you see that playing out in New Hampshire? Where are you trying, with the fact that you're trying to lower the business and profit tax?
So look, I proposed my budget, which had across the board tax cuts way before Biden passed anything. So our tax cuts proposals have been in place. It does not require a single dollar from the federal government, nor should it, right? And in a way, they're right. You should never use the federal one-time money for a tax cut. I totally actually get that. But there are so many states out there that have surpluses that should be creating tax cuts. And so for the federal government to say, well, we're not going to allow tax cuts. First off, they can't do that. Second off, most states have surpluses that are driving their tax cuts. We're not doing tax cuts because of the federal money. That's a complete misnomer. So that's just where it is. And we have every right to do it. My guess is if they challenge us, it'll play out in the courts. I think Secretary Yellen has finally understood that, well, I guess maybe, we can't be saying this. So they seem to be backing off that concept a little bit, which is good. We're moving forward. We're creating tax cuts. And frankly, I dare the federal government to stop us. This is New Hampshire. And it's what we're going to do.
Great. Question came in from Julie Reynolds, who I believe is with a local bank, but she asked about the nursing shortage in our state, and if there's anything the state is doing to work with the, she's with Cornerstone VNA, another Julie. So with Cornerstone VNA, about the nursing shortage, is there anything the state is doing to work with the college system and the community college system to increase the supply of nurses? And at the same time, you might want to touch about the potential merger of those two systems, if you would.
Sure. So look, I'm incredibly proud. I frankly, we're doing more to address the nursing issue than any administration in the last 40 years. When I became governor, we didn't even have an LPN program in the state. You had to go to another state to get it. We've created that program throughout our community colleges. I put money in, and actually, not to get political, but the Democrats kept taking it out of the last budget, and I forced it back in to double the number of nurses at the UNH program. So we're going to do a big construction project. It's underway now. That'll take the number of nurses from about 85 undergraduate, 15 to 20 graduate type students, more to doubling that number. And then you put on the back of that, the student debt pay down program. Again, doesn't cost taxpayers any money. It's from this fee program that we already have in place. You put that on the back end to incentivize those nurses to stay and work in New Hampshire after we develop them. That's huge. Then on top of that, you add our CTE program in our high schools. We have all these career and technical schools where many of them have nursing programs, but we're making sure that all of them can have nursing programs. So we're not waiting till you go to college to say, gee, I hope you become a nurse. We're creating those programs for students sophomore, junior year in high school to get them started on some of that preliminary type opportunity, get them excited about what they can do, have a warm handoff either into the community college or our four-year system, and then a student debt pay down program to put them right into the workforce. So we're thinking workforce back to 15 years old, right? That's really where workforce starts when you talk about nursing. And we've finally created all of these pieces that didn't exist 3 or 4 years ago. They're all in place now to be seamless. And then you can replicate that for mental health, for psychiatry, for SUD programs, anyone who, all those, well, it's kind of not direct nurses, RNs or LPNs or LNAs, but all those other types of folks that are working one-on-one for the better health of an individual, you can expand that opportunity to all of them. So it's an awesome opportunity. Quickly to the second half of your question. I'm talking fast because I know you have a lot of questions. The merging community college and university system is an awesome opportunity, absolutely huge. Will it save us money in the long run? Maybe, but that's not why we're doing it. We're doing it for the customer, for the parent, for the student who wants a seamless opportunity as they go through their kind of post-high school career opportunities. If we're constantly telling folks, well, you can go to the 2-year college or the 4, you pick one or the other. Old school thinking, very old school thinking. The new way, the 21st century, is really making sure that a student has choice, because that's what they want. They want choice. Students understand that at 18, they might not know what they really want to do with their lives, and knowing that they can start down a path and pivot seamlessly, as opposed to leaving one system and getting into another. The two systems work okay together, but they really are effectively 11 individual systems, right? There's 4 in the university system, there's 7 over here in the community college. They get to all keep their identity, but they really have to work under one umbrella with one message, one goal, right? One set of metrics. And all those goals and metrics aren't about the system. They have to be about the student. And it doesn't work like that now. It just doesn't. So they're wonderful systems. University system is phenomenal. Community college, one of the best in the country. They're also both two of the most expensive systems in the country. When you put them under one roof and you create lots of options and opportunities and new ways of thinking, part of that is how we price it, right? New pathways for students, different options, different tiers, if you will. This idea that we're just going to charge the same amount for the same credit every single time, I think that's kind of antiquated. I think we should challenge ourselves to think about being more competitive on price with a better option of opportunities. You know, both systems compete for dollars from the legislature. They both compete for students. They both have online programs that are duplicative, but they're all New Hampshire, right? Why? Let's get them all under one roof. And so all I've done is to say, look, we're going to put the board together. That's it. That's all my bill does. It puts the board together and says, you take a year and figure out what this should look like, right? We'll bring in M&A folks and we'll bring in education folks, and we'll really get to the understanding of what the opportunities are on both the front and the back end. Take the year to figure that out, and then we'll come up with and then the systems truly merge under that umbrella. And you know, there'll be a couple of years of transition there, but you got to get it going. The frustration I have with the legislature is they want to do a study committee. Let me tell you something. When somebody says the word study committee, just know that they're killing your idea. That's all it does. It puts it into a little report. It delays it a couple of years, and they hope that you never bring it up again. That's literally how it happens in Concord. So study committee is code word for we're too afraid to do it. We don't have the courage to take the steps to do it. It's a bold move. I get it, but it's the right move, because it's the right move not for government. It's the right move for the student. And I got to tell you, the response we've gotten from the community college, the teachers and the students is phenomenal. The university system, the board of directors is very much on board, which is great. We've talked to the professors, they're on board. So everybody wants this to happen. The legislature just needs to kind of give the final go ahead and get it over the line. And so I'm confident we can do it. I mean, we'll see where it really ends up. You know, I'm not counting my chickens before they hatch, but there's no doubt it's the right thing to do. It's just a matter of whether they'll do it. Great.
I know the professor at UNH that lives with me here is excited about it, so I agree with that sentence. So another question from Ken. I think it was 2 years ago, we saw the first positive immigration rates to the state. And I know anecdotally lately, we've had a lot of people move here from folks south of here. Do you expect that rise to increase, and are we seeing the same thing on the business side?
Oh yeah, businesses, families, everyone's moving here. I mean, there's no other way to couch that. People are buying, you know, homes sight unseen from across, literally out of Europe and San Francisco. We had a lot of folks move here out of like Seattle, San Francisco, Minneapolis. You know, if you're in California right now, a lot of them are going to Texas. If you're in kind of the New York, Boston, Connecticut, Rhode Island area, you're coming to New Hampshire. So, you know, we're just a top 10 state. I think we're ranked us, Texas, and Tennessee, we're ranked the top 3 states for families and businesses for 2021. That's just where people are going. And it's by design. It is not by accident. And one thing I say it, you know, with a smile, but I'm actually quite serious. We got to remind people why they came here, right? We have a very fundamentally different system. And to be very blunt, I don't want you to bring your ultra politics here, one way or the other, right? We are the live free or die state. We do it with a nimble, small government, no sales and income tax, you know, liberties and freedoms that other states aren't providing. Don't take that for granted, right? We have to really hold true to that because it can very, very easily slip away. We almost lost it just 2 years ago when they were trying to pass income taxes and all that kind of nonsense. You gotta make the tough decisions and hold true to who we are to be that kind of gold standard, to be, otherwise we just become like Northern Massachusetts. It would be very easy to become like Northern Massachusetts. So we have to keep fighting for that. And I think, you know, just kind of being ahead of the pack definitely helps us today, but we definitely have to earn it for tomorrow as well.
Great. I did have a couple of just comments come in, just expressing appreciation for your support on a couple of different issues. One being your support of the vulnerable populations, including people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and they thank you for that. Another from our friends at the Music Hall, who thank you for the live venue support and the NERF funds, and the collaborative spirit of developing the new safety guidelines. That being said, we also had a couple of comments come in. One from our friends down at the beach, who thank you for being the judge of the sand sculpture competition, and another about the Market Square Day and other larger events. What do you see the summer season looking like for those larger scale events?
Well, I really mean it. I plan big, plan big. What I try to remind folks is my job is to think about April 14th and what's happening today and all that, while keeping the big picture in mind. But I ask businesses and citizens, put yourself in June 14th, right? Everyone who wants a vaccine is going to be absolutely fully vaccinated. Everyone who wants a vaccine can get in the system now. We've been able to prioritize individuals. Our case numbers are going to be up through, I think, April and even early May, but the fatality rate is down, the hospitalization is managed. But even those case numbers, like we saw, are going to come down drastically throughout May, I believe. And by June, like remember where it was June 14th, that's kind of what it's going to look like in the June 14th of this year. Very low case numbers, very low fatalities, a fully vaccinated population. We're there with a lot of cash in people's pockets. They all want a vacation. They want that vacation they didn't get in 2020. And this is and the word is out. New Hampshire is the place to be. So plan big. You're planning parades or festivals. Don't think about it like it's April 14th. Think about it like it's July 4th, right? And that mentality of where we're going to be. And so that's why I tell people, we might not be opening everything this moment today. That's not very far off. And so, you should plan ahead. So whether it's the fairs or festivals or 4th of July or family vacations, I say plan big. It's always easier if something else were to hit that we weren't expecting, to pull back than to say, gee, I didn't know it was going to be this good. We should have planned ahead. We should have planned a little bigger and a little more aggressive. Plan aggressive. This is a year to do that.
Great. I think this will be the last question from me, and I'll pass it back to Valerie, who may have a question or two at the end. A question came in about the concern for funding of the Department of Travel and Tourism. Tourism marketing shows for every dollar spent, the state receives about $13 in return. That's pre-COVID numbers. What's your position on the funding for this revenue generating team?
Sure. So look, we've drastically increased funding for travel and tourism over the years. I'm not sure where the legislature has it right now. I can't tell you what the House did with those numbers. Either way, there are, with potential use of the Biden dollars coming in or whatever it is, money is not going to be the problem here, folks. It's really not. If anything, we should be a little bit concerned about the amount they're spending out of Washington, because we're all paying for it one way or the other. There's going to be great opportunity. I'm asking them for flexibility in terms of how we spend those dollars, because New Hampshire is very different than New York or Massachusetts or California. So give us the flexibility to do it New Hampshire's way. And that would fundamentally trickle down to the opportunity to fund, whether it's travel or tourism or help upgrade facilities at our parks or whatever it might be. So they're absolutely right. Every dollar you spend is a couple dollars back into our economy through travel and tourism. Whatever we can do to pump those dollars up, I'm all for it. And we should have the ability to do it out of a variety of different pots, but it should be there.
Great. Those were all the questions from the chat, I believe. Turn it over to Valerie.
Thank you. Lots of great discussions there, Governor. Thank you very much. Touched on a number of different subjects. One of the things that we're facing now, first of all, I totally agree with you that we are going to have a rocking summer. We are already seeing signs of it. Our hotels and our restaurants on the weekends are jamming. We need to fill in the weekdays a little bit more. Trying to do it safely, trying to do it using science, trying to do it well, and yet still supporting our business community that does need to come back with a roar. And we know we're probably a year away from getting those businesses back to where they were. One of the things you've been talking about is lifting restrictions, changing up the guidelines. You're targeting Memorial Day. So I have two questions associated with that and one comment. One is, what are the metrics you're going to use to be able to make that decision that as of Memorial Day, you're going to list some guidelines, restrictions, and what restrictions are you looking at lifting? And the comment with that is many of our retailers in particular restaurants have really appreciated the mask mandate. So it's the stick behind the door that keeps their front staff, their frontline staff from getting bullied or in some cases beaten. Because we have that stick behind the door that, from both the city and the state, that says there is a mask mandate out there. So just asking how we're going to make those decisions, if you would help me with that.
Sure. So a couple things. Let's talk about metrics first. The metrics we use today are the same metrics we've been talking about for the last year. The only change is we're now adding vaccine distribution into that. So you have fatalities, which were averaging 13 a day 2 months ago. They're averaging 1 to 2 a day today. And it's unfortunate we still have 1 or 2 a day, but we've literally dropped that 95% already. Hospitalizations, which are stable. We're not getting, our system isn't being overrun. There's really no fear of that. Hospitals are fully open with all their other operations. So we feel very comfortable where we are with hospitalizations. And then vaccine distribution. I've been able to be the best in the country, and I'm very proud of that. So far, it bounces around. Maybe we're first today, we're fourth, tomorrow. It's not a race, who's counting, but I watch the numbers every day. But we've been able to stay right on track with that very aggressively. And that allows folks who want a vaccine, who want to protect themselves to do so, and those folks who don't. In terms of what regulations by Memorial Day, virtually all of them. And people need to be, and I'm not talking Memorial Day, I'm talking way before Memorial Day, because once you've provided that vaccine to the most vulnerable population, let's call it the 50 and ups or the 60 and ups, that make up 98% of the fatalities. Once have the choice, and some of them have chosen. We have folks in long-term care that have said, not for me, we're okay. And they choose not to get the vaccine, and that's their choice. But once you've at least allowed everyone to have that opportunity or to move up, to be fully vaccinated, that's the game. And we've protected that vulnerable population. We've controlled the death rate, which is what this was all about in the first place. We've controlled the overrun of our hospitalizations. That's what every regulation was about in the first place. So once you've managed that, and we've done that better than almost anybody, we can open up, get rid of the mask mandate, get rid of the regulations. If not now, then when? If you vaccinated everybody in the vulnerable population that wants a vaccine, but you don't get rid of your restrictions, then when are you going to get rid of the restrictions? Because you can't force people to get the vaccine. We're not going to do that. So, we're there. And I know, look, I get it. Having the state do the mask mandate, great. Chris Sununu, we'll put Chris Sununu's name on every door, right? Every store, per the governor's order, per the governor's order, per the governor's order. I understand completely that kind of gets rid of that sometimes tough conversation that folks don't want to be in with mask mandates or not, with wearing masks in their stores and all of that. But when you're at the point where everybody can get those protections, the state is going to simply, we're still encouraging mask wearing, we're still encouraging folks, but the state is simply saying, we're not going to, send the secret COVID police out to arrest you if you're not wearing a mask, right? All that kind of stuff. It's just not a forced mandate. The restaurant industry is very interesting. We put some of the restrictions on restaurants where we saw a lot of outbreaks, and they screamed and they roared, and how dare you, you can't do this to us, you can't do this to us. And now that we're going to flex open regulations, they're like, oh, but wait, don't do it so fast. Look, guys, it's not about that. It's about, have people been able to protect themselves? Absolutely. Have we got vaccine out? Absolutely. Are all our metrics hitting the guidelines we want to see? Absolutely. So we're going to create these flexibilities. Some businesses will have mask mandates, and I think that's wonderful. Some businesses may choose not. Some cities may still have mask mandates that they're instituting. Some may not. That is their choice. That is part of that live free or die thing. We are in the exception. This is not the norm. And so as we get out of COVID, as we get folks vaccinated, we're getting out of the regulations, and we're doing it really, really fast. People need to be prepared like really quickly that this stuff is going to start going away. And what we'll do is we'll turn our universal guidelines that we kind of hold folks to more of universal best practices, right? We're going to keep encouraging folks to maintain distancing when they can, avoid crowds when they can, just for if anything, for the courtesy of others, wearing masks, even, when whether vaccinated or not, just be courteous of others. But it's not the government mandating it. That's a whole different ballgame. And it was very hard to do that, very hard decision. But think of, we went all last summer without mask mandates, all into the fall without mask mandates. We did just fine. We did great, actually. It wasn't until late November that we put a mask mandate in place, but now our numbers are coming down aggressively, and that's where we want to be. And we're going to kind of celebrate that success and take that win and get back to what, you know, normal is, and really be able to, you know, live in 2021 like we're going to party like it was 2019.
Thank you for that. That's an important discussion as we're talking with particularly our restaurants who are now outside, who have limited capacity. You know, they have X number of tables because we still have the 6-foot guidelines. But to go from that to no restrictions at all, they can't go from 50% to 100% overnight. They've got to plan. So
Right.
that conversation.
And
is very
again,
helpful.
if I may, I don't mean to interrupt, Valerie. We're not just going to rip the Band-Aid off like other states. We'll take one step this week. We'll take another step next week. We'll give people a lot of time to plan, but people should plan for that. They shouldn't be surprised by anything. But we're not waiting till Memorial Day and then we'll get rid of some restrictions. We've been making those steps over the past few weeks. You hear me at every press conference, getting kids back to school 5 days a week, creating more flexibilities for this industry or that industry. We're going to keep doing that. And my sense is we'll be stepped right through most of these regulations within the next few weeks.
That is great news and a great heads up. Thank you very much. So I think that you've covered all of the questions that I see for the most part here, and I really appreciate that. Great variety of topics. Is there anything that you want to say in wrapping up, Governor?
No, wow, it's really been an hour? Holy cow.
It's pretty darn close, and we're trying to be
Okay.
sensitive to your schedule. So
No, I'm happy to, I'll stick around. I see, it's funny, I'm looking at everybody. You guys do this thing on Zoom. You're like, you look at everybody sitting there. You're like, oh, so-and-so's here, so-and-so's here. I see Sarah B. I think, was you eating cereal earlier, Sarah? I see. Funny, I don't mean to embarrass you, Sarah. I love Sarah B. But no, it's just great to see so many folks here. Look, let us know, right? We want to have that feedback. I think that's one of the most important things. As we come out of COVID, we're not over with COVID, right? COVID is going to be with us for years. I think we have to kind of generally accept that. We're going to see numbers rise and fall in the summer, and then we're going to see another surge in November. It's going to happen. But when you've protected the most vulnerable, everyone's been able to vaccinate themselves that can and should. That's kind of it. And we're likely going to end up with one of the highest vaccination rates in the country. I thought we were going to be in the 40–50% range of vaccinated individuals. I'm thinking now it's more to the 70+% range, which is just phenomenal. And I think we get there, you know, in a matter of a month or two. So it's great. And we're opening up vaccines to even out-of-staters. If you own a second home, if you're a student, you're whatever, I don't care. I don't care where you're from or why you need the vaccine. We've let everyone from New Hampshire have first shot at it, and we still have some left. So we're gonna open it up to everybody. And that's just kind of that New Hampshire way about us. So that hopefully will create a little more flexibility and opportunity and comfort for folks to come in, whether it's in Portsmouth or all the way up to the Lakes region and the mountains and beyond, to feel comfortable. And that's what we're trying to do. People have to feel comfortable about engaging with a business. There'll be a transition period. There's going to be bumps in the road. There's going to be that weirdness because we've become very accustomed to the masks and the regulations and tell us what to do. But that ain't normal, guys. It's not. I don't like doing it. I've had to make decisions over the past year that I hope no governor ever has to make. I really do. It's been really hard. Myself, my family, and all that. I'm not having a pity party. Don't have any pity for me. But it has been very, very tough. The people of this state have responded phenomenally, just really phenomenally. And so we're going, I think to your point, Valerie, we're going to not just rip the Band-Aid off, but take a few steps. But they're here. We've already started taking a few. We're going to keep taking them aggressively because the vaccine's coming out faster and faster, you know, every day and every weekend. So that opportunity is there. It's going to be a great summer. Keep us informed of what else we can be doing, what else you're hearing out there. I don't know, like I said, party like it's 1919.
I think we're all planning on that, and I certainly hope that you come down and sit in the in our European style outdoor dining here in Portsmouth at some point, Governor. We'd love to see you and your family here and enjoying the. We've got almost 50 restaurants out on the streets now, so we're very excited about that. And it's so vibrant, it's so lively. They're doing such a good job. Come down and visit with us.
You bet. Thanks, guys. Appreciate the time.
Thank you very much, Governor. I'm going to wrap up with some thank yous to Ken Sheldon and his team at the B of A for sponsoring this and allowing us to have the governor here this morning. Thank you so much. I want to thank all of you for being here, and I'm going to tell you about 3 quick things that you want to know about. One is the SBDC resiliency survey that has been completed for the state and also for the Seacoast and also specifically for Portsmouth. And at our Chamber Chat Live on April 23rd, we're going to be giving you all of those numbers, and you can see the difference from the last survey to this survey and how we're doing. And I think that you'll be pleasantly, maybe not surprised, but reinforced, which is great. I mean, we've, as the governor has mentioned, we have weathered the storm. Storm isn't over quite yet, but we weathered it, and we weathered it well. And I think you'll see that in the numbers. We have hit the decks. We're celebrating hit the decks. We usually do it one day. We're doing 5 days, May 12 to 16, with all of our outdoor dining, with our retailers, hotels, our attractions, historic homes, everything. We're all celebrating that we're back to a party like it's 2019, right? So maybe we need to change our tagline for hit the decks. And then the last thing is that we have the State of the City on May 19th. So please put that in your calendar, because we'll want to hear from the city as well, and how they're the guidelines and the forward moving positivity from the city as well. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Governor, we really appreciate your time. Hopefully we'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody. Be well. Bye-bye.